What are red flags for roommates? In my experience, if you live with a stranger, then sometimes there's a mutual understanding to be on good behavior. You may never be close, but it may not be an awful situation either. Sometimes it doesn't work this way, but in my experience it does a surprising amount of time. If you live with a friends, expect every one of their flaws to go up by a multiple of at least 5x. They always are down to drink. Guess what? Your house is going to be a party house. Is their car a mess? Guess what? Your house is going to be a disaster. Is their homework always late? Don't be surprised if the rent is late, too. And with family, make that 10-20x. I knew a guy who always on the lazier side that moved in with his cousin. He then proceeded to stop paying rent and looking for a job. Be very cautious moving in with family. Edit. I realize the example I gave don't always correlate, such as people with a messy car having a clean house. My point was just that whatever character flaws they have usually become exaggerated as a roommate. Mom moves him in while he watches. Mom sets his room up while he stares into his phone. Mom shops grocery and cooks it for him while he complains he's hungry. Mom fills the fridge with pre-cooked meals while he eats. Mom cleans up everything and leaves. Congratulations, now you're his mom. Edit. To be clear, I didn't do anything for him. I made it clear that regardless of what he thought, I wasn't his mom, and the lease bring what it is. It lasted a year. This was years ago back in college days, and I'm a parent now. It does take a conscious effort to break away from doing things for your kids because it becomes such a routine. So I can empathize, to a degree, but by the time you're in college, you should be able to survive if you're dropped within walking distance of a Walmart. And thanks for the old. If their smell enters the room before they do and sticks around after they leave. Differing political beliefs. I'm not talking I disagree. Let's have a slightly heated debate. Those roommates are cool. The ones I'm talking about are the if you don't agree with me you are another Holocaust people. Oh man, I have a couple, all gained from painful experience. If someone, before they live with you, constantly comments on how clean your someone's place is, when in reality it's just normal and not that clean at all, take this as a sign that you have very different standards of cleanliness. A little more personal, but if the person has a history of many friendships lasting less than 1 year, without excuses like moving or switching jobs, or seems to have a long trail of people that they no longer speak to, or all their old friends are described as crazy psychos, or seems like the greatest person in the world but inexplicably has no friends whatsoever. If someone tells you who they are, listen. For example, when my old roommate said casually in conversation, "Yeah, my mom and my sisters don't think that I'm capable of feeling empathy, like I'm a sociopath." They used to say that a lot. The same roommate also once told me that she's never felt guilt before, and didn't know what it felt like. She's almost 30. She also had a restraining order served on her a couple days after she moved in. Red flags. If friends of your potential roommate come to you and ask you if you've really thought this through, and mention that maybe you don't know this person as well as you think you do, listen to those people. If you've noticed that this person doesn't seem to respect the property or personal space of others, those are the biggest ones I've experienced. Similar to a romantic partner, if all of their previous roommates were crazy, inexplicably hated them, forced them to move out, sociopaths, assholes, Satan worshippers, that's a huge red flag. When they bring their dates back to your room without telling you in advance, then lock you out in the hallway so they can have privacy. Kind of too late to call, but if there's a fight on move-in day, the whole thing is going to be a fight. Also, if one person tries to impose a cleaning schedule or rotation, these things are always doomed for disaster, I find, because then there's documented blame to go around if one person slacks off, even if it's for a good reason, overloaded with schoolwork, extreme bout of sickness, works 12 hours day, etc. Finally, if she disappears for 4 hours and returns bragging about spending $200 on professionally done glue on nails one day, then has her grandparents over the next day bringing food because she's broke, She has absolutely no understanding of time or money and will not be able to empathize with you when you say you can't afford the $10 it costs to buy a pack of toilet paper because your part-time Walmart job barely covers your share of the rent and your bus pass. She will also eat your food despite labeling and try to flush hard stalks of celery down the toilet. Okay, now, before I make my final decision I just want to make sure our personalities match. Okay, so I made up a little test. Now, I'm gonna say a word and then you say the first thing that comes to mind. I can do that. Okay, here we go. Pillow. Fight. Very good. Okay. G. String. Excellent. Okay. Doggy. Kitten. Oh. Sorry. No. So close though. But. Bye bye. If a potential roommate says they expect the apartment to stay presentably clean, that's a good thing. But if the potential roommate says that and lives in a sty, run away. Happened to me and turns out the guy never had to lift a finger cause his mom and then ex-GF would always clean for him, so he expected things to be clean, but didn't expect to have to contribute and would give me attitude when I tried to push him to do his share. His retort: dude, with all due respect, I agreed to live with you, so you should appreciate it by doing the cleaning. My retort: dude, with all due respect, grow the duck up or move the duck out. I'm ashamed to say that he got another girlfriend and she did all of his cleaning. We stopped fighting about it and they are still together, so great friend. It roommate. I'd live with her again though. She liked to bake. If your cat loves them more than it loves you. Do they have no friends? Do they have no friends and insist on a curfew? Did they move in with a barbell and 45 plates but the whole house is hardwood floors and they live on the second floor? Are you dropping weights on the ducking wood, you idiot? Have they suggested everyone throws money together for a house gun in case of ghetto stuff? The trash is too heavy to take out. Female roommates will do this. Is there limited fridge space and suddenly their duck buddy just moves in and needs 7 different kinds of mustard? Do they try to duck the other roommates while their sew is gone? Are the other roommates too awkward to actually say anything? Is there a couch guy? Is the couch guy always able to find money for booze and weed but rent is always an awkward conversation? Are they struggling with their sexuality? Are they taking it out on a roommate of a different gender? Did they threaten to call the cops on a house party that hasn't even happened yet? Every time I have accepted food from someone in a living situation, it comes to bite me in the ass. Beware roommates bearing gifts. If someone decides the best way to communicate is via passive-aggressive post-it notes placed strategically about the apartment, then you should consider finding a new place. I'm talking about you, Shadi. Drinking habits are a big one. If you have a roommate who's alright sober but always a problem drunk, consider having to deal with that every time. I've had roommates who were great except their drinking was too much. Another is expectations. My old roommate thought we'd be that household that goes out every weekend and has grill nights. I just wanted someone to pay rent. While it didn't cause major problems with me, our third roommate was roped in a lot of social events he didn't like and caused a great deal of tension. Unable to hold a conversation that doesn't involve a quote from a Will Ferrell movie. Draws a line across the room. This is my space, and that is your space. If you ask if he's ever lived with a female roommate and the story ends with him dragging that horse bed out to the driveway and setting it on fire. Red skin, tail, 2 horns, calls himself Satan. This is very minor compared to some of the other things in this thread, but it has prevented me from committing murder. Ask if they own any non-stick cookware. If they do, ask to see it. If it's not all scratched to hell, it's probably safe to leave yours in the kitchen for shared use. Otherwise, if it has a single scratch in it or if they don't own any, yours needs to stay under lock and key. Looking for a pen in my underwear drawer. If someone tells you they had a crazy roommate, they had a crazy roommate. If someone tells you they had 10 crazy roommates in a row, they are the crazy roommate. This rule applies to exes as well. If they don't have the same cleanliness standards as you, things will be a little rough. It will eventually lead to either someone doing all the cleaning work, whoever the cleanest of the bunch is, or lead to some big argument as things come to a head. Unfortunately for me, I had this chameleon of a roommate. He changed his habits based on the laziest person in the room. When he and I first moved in together, we both kept things very clean, and I thought we had similar standards because I had seen where he lived before several times. Then our third roommate moved in, who is the dirtiest person on the planet. Basically, we let him move in as a favor to him, because he needed a place to stay, and we thought, how bad can it be? It was ducking awful. My original roommate basically stopped cleaning because so and so doesn't clean either, making things 2-to-1 against my standard of cleanliness, which is a pretty average normal standard. The house got so disgusting that my girlfriend basically stopped coming over because of how gross it was. I eventually confronted them, had some huge shouting match because one of them got their egos bruised, and the friendship hasn't been the same since. I stayed until 11 PM cleaning that place on the last day there, simply so I could get my security deposit back. They had left at like 3 or 4 PM, which leads me to another point. If possible, don't be the one who put up the security deposit. That person is the only one who has something to lose based on the condition of the place. If possible, split the deposit equally. While talking to you, looks at their ringing phone and says, I'm going to ignore that, it's just a collections agency. Unable to smell, talk, understand social cues, can barely ducking vocalize, unwilling to clean and keep their it on their side of the room. Doesn't have a job and isn't looking for one. Their home or room is a big mess. This is based on my personal experience. In their ad they say they are no drama. If they are really no drama, they won't have to announce it. Man ladder children. They're easy to spot and must be avoided, or you'll hear things like, I shouldn't have to pay rent. I only stay in my room. After catching them red-handed preparing and eating my food, well, I thought it was okay now. You gave us food last night. Or, my favorite, every time they heard a lighter flick, they'd be in my room in less than 30 seconds. Oh, are you gonna smoke a bowl? Can I join? Coming on your face while you sleep. I like to party occasionally. Hope that doesn't bother you. Means I play loud music and have people over all the damn time. Alcoholic. These people are rough to live with. One of my roommates a few years ago was an alcoholic, and not in the I have a few beers with dinner on a Tuesday way. I mean, she would guzzle full glasses of gin and tonics every day of the week, to the point where she couldn't bike home and I would have to talk her back to the apartment at 2 AM when she called. She purposely did not eat in order to get as wasted as possible and would vomit clear liquid that turned the toilet bowls a weird shade of grey if left too long. If they are not mature and responsible, you're gonna have a rough time. It sucks, but be as compassionate as possible. This same roommate got locked out one time. It was New Year's Eve. I rushed home to let her in. From that day on, she lost her keys an average of twice a week and would call me, drunk off her ass, to let her in. If I did not instantly drop everything I was doing and rush to her aid, she would call, text, and FaceTime me until my phone battery died. Never lost her wallet, credit cards, or bike lock, just her keys. Best roommates are mature, competent, and leave you alone. Anxiously scrolls through comments to see if I'm a bad roommate. Worries about my cleanliness. Worries cause I don't have any really close friends in college right now. Worries because I don't really have a life outside my own. They have no sense of personal space whatsoever. They leave dishes lying around. If they want something, they could care less about interrupting you to get it. They bathe with the door open. They threaten physical violence when annoyed. They're mean to people in the service industry. Cats are terrible roommates, and one of mine is really mean to the vet. If a group of children ever gets real quiet, investigate immediately. I had a friend who said her roommate would keep used tampons in the living room by sticking them to the wall and would then reuse them at a later date. Treats her parents badly, or really treats anyone badly. Edit. I suppose I should have said unjustifiably badly. When your roommate has turtles. Now my whole fridge is filled with kale and my living room filled with dandelion plants. SOS. Funny guys, stay clear of those. If all of their social media consists of pictures, etc., of them violently intoxicated at all times, if they have nothing nice to say about all former roommates, it's likely that this person is the reason those situations were the way they were. A red flag roommate can be someone who is probably going to go to prison. My girlfriend's best friend signed a lease with some dude who's going to court in October for a driving on revoked after his second DUI and multiple assault charges. People who are coming from mom and dad's house for the first time. You just never know what they're used to having other people do for them. People like me, who come home drunk very early in the morning when you have finals and piss in the sink. Actually, look at their job history. A lease is a commitment. If the individual only holds jobs for a couple months at a time and is constantly bumming smokes and eating all your food after you ever so graciously smoke their bum ass down with your weed, they're probably not a good choice. Pick someone smarter, cleaner, and more driven than you as a roommate. As grandpa used to say, hang out with people smarter than you. You could learn something. TLDR, you are the company you keep. Oh man, I've had some bad ones. If they immediately want to become your bestest friend, like they have no life outside their own and no one to talk to. It's cool if you're friends with your roommates, but it shouldn't be forced. If they're a day or two late on rent or utilities, which does happen, and you confront them and they are crazy defensive about it, like, geez, dude, was just reminding you. Anyways, it's usually because they can't pay it. Cleanliness. Dear God, make sure it matches. If they're obsessed with a plate or two of yours being in the sink when they see the place, it's usually because they are the bigger slob. In my experience, ask about their jobs and how long they've worked there. If they're constantly switching jobs, don't do it. If they are looking for a place to move it tomorrow or next week, they'd better have a good reason why it's so quick. They're probably getting kicked out of their current place, which is what was happening with my last roommate. Also, even if you're not the landlord and you are just looking for a roommate, you should have it written somewhere in the lease or sublease about how you're breaking up utilities with the roommates. I don't care if they're your best friend, partner, or a Craigslist roommate. I learned that one the hard way. Some tips. In most states' provinces you can look up the criminal and civil court cases by name for free. It won't help avoid the messy or annoying people, but it could help avoid the non-rent payers. Look people up on Facebook. You will learn a lot about them. Try to meet their friends because these people will inevitably come around to the house. Some people clean up nice for the meeting, but their entire social circle are party animals, druggies. It's better to go a month with no roommate than to get the wrong roommate. People who don't understand why or what the point is of cleaning up after oneself. It's a sense of entitlement when they don't do it. It'll become worse. More oh sorry I forgot BC, you will be the one cleaning up after them. You're not their caretaker. They are an adult. If they can't keep their space clean, or even wash their own dish after using it, they probably can't wipe their own ass right, so they should stay W their parents who will deal W that. You don't need to clean after another grown ass person. I seriously hate people like that. I wonder how they can even remember to breathe at times. For duck's sake. So far there's a couple of funny guys in this thread. Funny guys PLS go. If they sound or act like they could be annoying, trust me, they will become unbearable. If they smell or aren't super clean, they'll become a pig after 2 weeks. If they usually ride on friends' money and company, they'll never take responsibility for everyday tasks. Finally, if they have a girlfriend boyfriend, take note, because this could mean they're out all the time or you get to hear millions of phone conversations. It's easy to spot red flags after someone moves in, but spotting them before can save a lot of hassle. For rent security, I'd look out for prompt communication when setting up meetings and viewings. Someone who can communicate on time is more likely to pay on time. For finding out if they're going to do things like leave dishes in the sink, don't ask if they're going to leave dishes in the sink. Ask how they'd feel if you did that. If they have a negative reaction, or seem uncomfortable, that's a good sign about cleanliness. Ask a couple questions about conflict resolution. If we have a routine established but then my job changes and suddenly we both need a shower at the exact same time in the morning, how would you address this? What have been points of conflict with other roommates in the past? What roommate situation has been easiest for you in the past? See if their responses are similar to yours. One person's ideal roommate can be another person's nightmare, even if neither is an asshole. And finally, my red flag for people who are controlling, demanding, and manipulative. If they answer questions with questions, don't want to talk about themselves, or are intent on controlling the conversation by asking too much, too personal, too fast without allowing you to ask about them. These people are just trouble. I'd avoid them. They're the type who, when you ask them if they would mind turning their music off earlier or using headphones or turning it down after a certain time, will reply with, "Why are you so demanding? How come we have to do it your way?" They take any request for change on their part and spin it into you being unreasonable. Avoid. If she tells you she once got high on heroin with a former student, yee, that was a fun year. She smoked crack Saturday evenings in her room, had various guys over almost every night, and would get ducked loudly. No basic hygiene skills. The kitchen was a disgrace. I'd find some new drug addict asleep in the living room most Monday mornings. Have a gaming PC. You'll know he will stay up until late morning disturbing your sleep. Edit. Many people got upset because of this comment. I apologize. It's just based on my experience and wanted to share. Cheers. My nightmare former roommate seemed like a nice enough guy when we met. He was working a professional job, looked put together when we met, and generally gave all the signs of a well-adjusted 20-something when we met. Then on the day he moved in, he had no one to help him move his stuff into the apartment. There are very good reasons why this might happen to someone new to a city, for example. But this guy had been living in the area for 2 years. His elderly, obese mom had driven 2.5 hours, and she was the only person who was going to help him move. The lesson here is that if someone doesn't have friends they can rely on to help them move, they are probably the kind of person who burns bridges. That's what happened with this guy. He ended up being a total asshole. But that's a separate story. A red flag with a white circle and diagonal swastika. If the house is cramped and cluttered when you first check it out and they say, "Oh, so sorry for the mess. It's never like this. It's much worse than that. All the time. They spent hours cleaning to make it look that good." Source: I moved into that house and it was disgustingly filthy all the time. Don't move in with alcoholics. You will either hate them or become an alcoholic. If they don't pay you back for small amounts of money, or are awkward when they do, they may not pay their bills in full or on time. 1. Lived in a converted bus on site in the country. How eccentric. I thought. 2. Had a very offbeat name for being an older white guy. 3. Was not overly interested in being sociable, but hugs you when you leave. You two are a guy, and you just met. 4. Smokes a ton of weed, but won't talk much about it or imbibe with you. 5. So vegan he doesn't like tofurkey in the fridge. 6. Incredibly nice, but at the same time oddly distant. 7. Has odd but interesting pictures on the wall. 1. Old film portrait of a young Indian girl clearly in India posing but looking slightly confused and vaguely afraid. 8. Estranged, partially, from children and ex. 9. Has a room filled with nothing but random brick and brack. SP. 10. He was not suspicious at all your first meeting, but soon acts untrusting thereafter, without cause. These were a few of the things I overlooked. He turned out to be a paranoid schizophrenic. It got weird fast. Also, other roommate, seems real cool, has lots of friends, admits to doing coke on occasion or just recreational. Run. Don't walk. He's almost definitely a piece of it. When they ask, "Hey, do you mind if I cook meth in the kitchen on weekends?" If you are discussing prior roommates and they only have negative things to say about everyone they've ever lived with, that is your cue to run away. It's like the old saying goes, if you smell it everywhere you go, check your shoe. I've had numerous roommates in my past that were the quick to complain about how messy and awful their last roommates were and how they never cleaned, were disrespectful, only to have them be the biggest pigs on the planet. The reason why it was always messy is because nobody cleaned, them included.